2025 through July 2026. Details at leitnermuseum.org. Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or baptistjacks.com. The North Florida TPO is dedicated to transportation planning, funding, clean fuels, and new technologies for a vibrant, resilient, and connected region. More information available at northfloridatpo.com.
This is WJCT News 89.9 Jacksonville. Up next, national and local news from NPR and the WJCT News team.
Good morning. I'm Ann Schindler. On today's First Coast Connect, 22 years after Art Walk began, some vendors fear being priced out. We talked to foundational creators and current artists about how the new vendor fees are changing the iconic downtown event. Then, a couple who sent love letters during wartime via secret code. We bring you their World War II love story in honor of Veterans Day. And they ain't sisters, but they are a wild mix of musical influences, from Prince to Shovels and Rope. We talked to the band Ain't Sisters ahead of their Jacksonville show. Join the conversation. Give us a call at 904-549-2937 or email firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. It's all ahead this hour after the day's news.
From NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. The House will now take up a Senate measure to reopen the federal government. It's been closed for 42 days. The Senate passed a short-term spending plan yesterday that would open the government through January 30th and some agencies for longer. Maine Republican Senator Susan Collins says federal workers will be compensated in the spending bill for what they've missed.
We are going to reopen government. We're going to ensure that federal employees, whether they were furloughed or laid off or forced to work without pay, will now receive compensation that they've earned and deserve.
But the House has to pass this measure before the government shutdown can end. The U.S. Supreme Court is considering whether a federal judge can order the Trump administration to use contingency money to pay for the federal food assistance program. It's called SNAP. Recipients are in limbo while they wait for a decision. From member station WFAE, Nick Delacanal reports local food assistance groups are under strain.
Have a great day, ma'am. Thank you so much.
A line of cars wraps around the block at a food share in Charlotte for people who receive SNAP benefits. Some here say they received partial payments on Friday, but it wasn't much. One man said he received $16 when he usually receives about $100. Others, like Michelle Sands, still have empty accounts.
I keep looking online and looking at it, and I even called my card and it still ain't saying nothing.
The uncertainty comes as food banks are preparing for Thanksgiving, normally their busiest time of year, and they say every day the shutdown continues makes their own holiday outlook more uncertain. For NPR News, I'm Nick Delacanal in Charlotte.
The government shutdown means air traffic is still being slowed down. There are hundreds of flight delays reported today in the U.S. Delays and cancellations are being reported in Atlanta, New York, Boston, Dallas, and Chicago. There were additional delays in Chicago because of bad weather. A Utah judge has approved that state's new congressional map. From member station KUER, Martha Harris reports yesterday's decision is seen as a win for Democrats.
The redistricting in Utah was court-ordered. A Utah judge previously ruled the state needed new boundaries, and they had to comply with the state's law banning partisan gerrymandering. The heavily Republican legislature came up with a proposal, but the judge rejected that map in her Monday ruling. That's because she ruled it was, quote, drawn with the purpose to favor Republicans. So she picked another map, one submitted by the plaintiffs in the case. The chosen map creates one district that favors Democrats. That means Democrats could flip a seat in Utah in the 2026 midterms. The state's current House delegation is made up of 4 Republicans. For NPR News, I'm Martha Harris in Salt Lake City.
This is NPR.
Good morning. You're listening to WJCT News 89.9 in Jacksonville. I'm Stephen Ponson. It's 9:04. A new workforce development program is offering paid internships to Duval County high school students in low-income communities. Michelle Corum reports major companies on the First Coast have signed up.
Nonprofit Genesis Works is new to Jacksonville. They partner with Duval County Public Schools to put 22 high school seniors into internships with companies like Comcast, Brooks Rehabilitation, Community First Credit Union, and Mayo Clinic, where Inglewood senior James Liu is interning as a medical administrative assistant.
I'm helping with scheduling doctors' time offs and making reports of all the radiology doctors and sending them out to my supervisor. And yeah, it's been great.
Students go through a summer training course learning Excel and Microsoft 360. Then they start their internships in the fall, working 4 hours a day, earning $15 an hour. Alexandra Rudnick with Genesis Works Jacksonville says the businesses pay the bulk of students' salaries.
Typically, our sites have about 70% of their funding coming from the internship sites themselves. We act as essentially a staffing agency, and we bill employers for students' time worked.
Genesis Works offers the internship program in 8 cities for students in mostly Title I schools. Michelle Corum, WJCT News, 89.9.
It'll be windy and cool today here in Northeast Florida. Highs will reach the low to mid-50s with sunny skies.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include the Lemelson Foundation, working to harness the power of invention and innovation to accelerate climate action and improve lives around the world. Learn more at lemelson.org. This is NPR.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided in part by Baptist Health and North Florida TPO.
Good morning. I'm Ann Schindler, and this is First Coast Connect. Today, paying to hawk at Art Walk. New rules and vendor fees are changing. Who can participate at the iconic downtown event? We'll talk about it with 4 longtime participants. Later in the program, a Veterans Day tribute told through a love story in wartime. But first, more than 2 decades after First Wednesday Art Walk began with a vision of defibrillating downtown Jacksonville, big changes are coming. Here to discuss the issue of new vendor fees from a variety of perspectives, we're joined by Sherry Shine, artist and jewelry maker and regular Art Walk vendor. Good morning, Sherry.
Good morning.
Tony Allegretti, currently the Chief Community Officer of Sporting Jacks, but for our purposes today, co-founder of First Wednesday Art Walk. Good morning, Tony.
Good morning, Ian.
Mal Jones, MC and host of the Freestyle Live rap event at Art Walk, the Lyricist Live. Mal, good morning.
Hey, good morning.
And Michael Taylor, vendor and artist behind the Temple Animus imprint. Good morning, Michael.
Morning.
So, Tony, let's start back in the halcyon days of Art Walk, pre-controversy. You were deeply involved in setting this up. Can you remind us what the setting was downtown back when Art Walk started and what you hope to create with it?
Sure. Like many good ideas, this was stolen from the first Thursday Art Walk in Seattle. My sister lived there and went over there, and it was just brilliant that all the doors were open, lofts downtown, but also the restaurants and the galleries, et cetera. It was just a great night out. It was always free and always a ton of people. And so I said, this is something that we could do here in Jacksonville. We've got this deep pool of creative talent and all these really kind of flexible spaces downtown and all these great entrepreneurs. And so we set it up. It was very small. The idea, though, was to have folks go into places, right? So it was very much a way to augment foot traffic and get people downtown. We did it on the first Wednesday of the month so that people could make rent. It was a very big thing, if you're a retailer or a restaurateur, to have Art Walk right at the beginning was really helpful. And we did it on Wednesday because at that time, Mocha, which was actually Jamoma, this is how long ago it was not open on Thursday night. And so Wednesday was it, and that's why it's the first Wednesday Art Walk.
And they were one of several anchors. I mean, in addition to the work that you did founding this, Downtown Vision Incorporated, which I think also maybe had a different name at the time.
No, it was still DVI.
It was DVI?
Yeah,
okay.
Yep.
They are an organization that helps downtown businesses, represents them,
Yeah, so I
helps.
had to pitch it to DVI. Their board had a lot of questions. How many people did we think we were going to be out? I totally made it up. I said, maybe 500. We never had less than 1,000 that first year. There was only 8 stops. We highly sort of not subsidized, induced folks to come. In fact, we gave away. There was a closet here where, and WJCT's always been was always a sponsor, which was excellent. It really helped. But Jazz Fest poster. So if you went to all 8 spots and came back to headquarters, you would get a vintage Jazz Fest poster. And we had like little enticements like that to get people out. And it was great. It was really helpful to the downtown economy.
And so it involved downtown businesses, downtown galleries, certainly, and MoCA was a big part of that. But vendors were always part of the mix.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And in the park, eventually the park really became sort of the HQ. I think it became a little, just over time, it's become more festivalized. Like one of the sort of mantras behind it was, don't make it something that it's not any other day, right? So like if you went to MoCA, you're going to see this, MoCA's open, right? Other days of the week. So it was a way to test, get your toe into what's happening downtown without porta potties, without cops, and without, blocking streets and all that. It's become more festivalized, which means it's more expensive now. So it's kind of lost that.
When did that happen?
It's over time, Ian. I think it's just, and some of it, I believe, is because of just the crowds, right? So like the streets weren't always blocked off. That's a pretty, I'd say, last 5-year scenario. But it's just it's just gotten bigger, and that's great. But also, I don't know that it's as helpful to those restaurants and entrepreneurs anymore. There's no retail right now. That we've kind of lost that when Wolf and Cub went. That was kind of the last man standing, and that's a bummer. It's not really a good environment for restaurants, in my opinion. It's very difficult. And then we're importing food trucks, and those guys aren't paying rent every month. They're paying DVI, which is fine. I mean, I think it's just a sort of it's a philosophy change with it, which everything changes.
Yeah, that's interesting.
The only thing that's consistent is change.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, we should say the park at the time had a different name as well. And you're a vendor there, Michael. James Weldon Johnson Park is kind of still the centerpiece, but it has expanded its footprint. It's a larger event than it was initially. What appeals to you about being a vendor at Art Walk? When did you start, and what kind of visibility has it provided to you?
I started around maybe 23,
Uh-huh.
2023. Some major changes is it was very small before. It still had some crowds coming, but as far as the vendor list, wasn't too many vendors that you would see there. If you talk to them, there's a lot of regulars, right? People that were already vending and sending a bunch of years already and things like that. And now, over the years, what you see is just you still see some of those regulars every now and again, but you see a lot of new faces. Like they're sort of like siphoning out different people, if you will. And it's definitely a larger crowd. Um, it's a bit more intense, I guess you could say. And I guess they're just trying to keep up with that. And I guess that's where the cost is coming from.
Yeah. And so what is the cost going to mean to you? I mean, we should say that the fees, which were initially charged just for folks who set up in James Weldon Johnson Park, are now going to be charged to any vendor that's sort of in this footprint of the event. It's going to be $45 a year to apply. There's also going to be then a monthly fee as well. How is that going to impact you?
It's gonna make it. It's gonna mean that for myself and most other vendors who don't budget vending, if you don't already, right, you're gonna have to start putting vending as a budget, just so you know what you're putting out, so that you know what you're gonna be able to get back in for whatever you're vending.
Is it going to be prohibitively expensive for you to do it, or is it a expense that you can afford and just work into your model?
you're gonna have to work it into your model, but it's gonna start out being more expensive, because it's a change, right?
Yeah.
Just like Tony said, any change is just gonna kind of mess you up a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So, um, a lot of times though, you'll notice a lot of people are somewhat prepared for it, but it's more or less like a thing of like there's no real communication of why the change is happening. You know what I mean? It's just like here's a new pricing.
Yeah.
You know, you're either in or you're out.
Sherry, we should say, first of all, you're a veteran. Happy Veterans Day to you.
Yes, thank
Thanks
you,
for
Sherry.
thank you.
Veterans Day.
Thanks for your service. You are a vendor there, and I know that you've expressed sort of a perspective from both sides. I mean, it's going to hit some vendors. Not everybody loves the idea of this additional fee, but there are also rising costs associated with the event. What is your perspective on, how this is going to impact you, your business, and then the people that you work alongside?
Well, the impact on me is really not as much as other people because I've always vended inside the park. The application fee is a little bit different, but I'm really accustomed to paying application fees. And what I've learned over a number of years is that normally when there's an application fee, that gives one indication that it might be a quality event versus versus an event that just takes anybody who comes along.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't really bother me, but I do have to factor it into my expenses.
Do you think that there has been, have there been conversations about the quality of vendors at Art Walk or wanting to make that a more selective process?
I haven't heard any conversations like that, although I feel, I always go through and scan the competition, and there seem to be pretty high quality vendors there.
Yeah. So, Mal, your situation is a little different. You have been at Art Walk for the past 14 years, and your artistry is a vocal artistry. You're a rapper. You do this live event called the Lyricist Live, and it is, a traditional kind of pass the mic circle. You call it a cipher, but it's basically where people come, they listen, sometimes they participate, and it's got a very infectious vibe. But you're not just like another vendor because you have had a special relationship with DVI in the past. Can you kind of explain how you began and how that evolved?
Okay, well, I started hosting the Lyricist Live like back in 2011 as a way to like highlight the hip hop community in my city because, like Tony said, there's a lot of artists in this city. It's like there's a huge influence on the music community of Florida right through Jacksonville. There's a lot of major artists that live here. And even just recently in May, Hulu had came down and flew out for a documentary about Jacksonville artists and the violent crime that they're participating in when it comes to rap music in Jacksonville. And me doing this hip hop cipher for so long in Jacksonville, it's not just any hip hop cipher. It promotes education, no cursing, no violence, and we've been doing that. So ABC found when they were doing their research about the documentary that they wanted to do on Jacksonville violent crime and with hip hop artists, they said, hey, we were doing our research and we found that in the city of Jacksonville where these rappers are killing each other, we couldn't believe that. We saw that in downtown of the city, you're doing a nonviolent hip hop cipher that's been going on for the past 13 years, and we want to make you a part of that story. So, episode 26, season 1 of Hulu Impact, they followed me around and just kind of learned about what I had been doing with Jacksonville hip hop artists in the city, and through that relationship, it's kind of like reflective of the relationship I've had with downtown doing this positive thing at the art walk for so many years. We've never had any violence. We don't, there's no cursing on the mic, and then that kind of curbs what's going on under behind the scenes in our city. And
A little bit of an antidote to the violence. Let's take
yeah,
a little listen to you performing at Lyricist live so people can get a sense of your style.
Stir it up in the pot like gumbo, man. I'm here to cook up a lot. MCs gotta know I'm here to take their spot. If they want it, I awaken. Yes, I'm never faking. Yeah, they bogling like Jamaicans. Trying to dance, but I see them. They got a lot of flow. You're laughing, man. I'm up on top of those.
So, you are always a regular performer there, but you also involve children. There's a lot of times that we watch your videos that you post to Instagram or Facebook, and you've got a little kid on the mic, maybe for the first time. You do a lot of work with kids.
right. We just I just had kids from our school at Global Outreach perform a song with the mayor, a jingle that teaches people about not littering in Jacksonville and keeping Jacks beautiful. This is what I've always envisioned for Jacksonville. No violence, no cursing, no littering, just keeping just an overall cleanliness to our city in every way. And that's kind of how I started, the relationship with the art walk, because they saw the value in what I was doing and allowed me to curate a space on Laura Street. So I had been to multiple locations downtown, Main Street, Laura Street, Forsyth, and every time I went to a spot, I asked for a location where it wasn't that much foot traffic, because I believed I could bring the foot traffic there. So we had been doing this for the course of 13 years, and the art walk footprint expanded. We started doing things different places, Ocean Street, way outside of the epicenter of the art walk, inside the park, and when after COVID, we got asked, will we come back? And, they gave me the opportunity to host vendors on Laura Street, because I was for the vendors. I would, with a microphone, advertise for those vendors while they were out there. So it wasn't like they were just waiting around. I'm bringing people to them. I'm saying, hey, come here, listen, I'm rapping about this vendor,
Right.
First Coast Connect. Listen to the dialect. Yo, write the check. Things like that are, with the hip hop community. And we know the biggest cultural influence for most businesses nowadays is through hip hop music. And it kind of really speaks for the community. And that's what I was doing with the art walk and what I was doing downtown.
I want to just reset for a second. If you're just joining us, we're talking about changes at Art Walk, including new vendor fees. If you have thoughts, comments, or suggestions, or you want to talk to one of our panelists, you are welcome to give us a call at 904-549-2937. You can email firstcoastconnect@wjct.org, or you can reach out on social media, X, Facebook, or Instagram at FCC On Air. Tony Allegretti, you were going to say.
Yeah, I was just going to say, this seems like a real spreadsheet decision. I wish there was someone from DVI here to talk about it, because it's a little head scratching. They can't be making a ton off of artists away from Hemming. Like, I understand Hemming, right? It's a central spot, paying vendors or vendors paying to be there and artists paying to be there. But to take artists really should be our last solution for trying to make money, right? And so what is that total we're trying to make up with that? And if it's some amount, is there a benevolent company or endeavor that would, I think of Jesse Ball or the different institutions around town that love the fact that Art Walk brings our cultural community out. And I have a ton of art that I've purchased from Art Walk over the years. half of them I couldn't find that artist now if I tried, right? And so it's people really dipping their toe into something that that may be long term, like Michael here, or it may be in Cherry, it may be somebody that just wants to put their creativity out there. And if you have to make your first $45 back, it may be a deterrent to get those new creative people out.
And we should say, I mean, to your point, we did invite DVI on the program. We reached out to them a couple of times. They issued a statement to us that was basically the statement that they issued to all local media when asked about it, which was sort of, these fees, have been created. Our team's committed to maintaining the high quality and accessibility of Art Walk, but no real details about the why. But I will say that the letter that they sent you, Mal, was a little more revealing because you have been a vendor. You receive a stipend from DVI for the work that you do, not just for the performance, but also for the work that you did curating other vendors on the block that you worked in. And so in their letter to you, when you asked about these new fees, they said a couple of things that were new to the conversation. One, they said, quote, the Office of Special Events, that's the city's office, has become more strict about enforcement, and DVI is responsible for ensuring complete compliance. They said this was part of, quote, a major shift in our permitting process by the city, and, quote, vendors are now required to be formally documented and approved through a centralized application process. And so the information that they shared with you there is a little more than perhaps we've known. But that same letter to you, they're basically saying, we're not in need of your services anymore, at least for part of that.
Right. The thing is that in turn of with me supporting the vendors, writing content for them, promoting them, I'm a writer for different companies. Like I've written a couple songs for JEA, and I'm pretty good at promoting other companies, and what I was doing for my vendors was promoting them with my voice. And I feel like, if JEA, the person that cut all these lights on, sees the value in me doing that and supports me in doing it, that means I would be able to, I should be able to promote the small business owner, for, just promoting their brand. And then in turn, they would support me and what I've been doing at the Art Walk for 14 years. So in that case, I would just promote my vendors on my block. They would then support me with donations or however they wanted to support,
And that's become a little bit of a sticking point on social media. We should say, just like in full transparency, there have been some people that have said the fees that they were paying to you, vendor fees to you, may not have felt entirely voluntary, or that, that maybe they felt pressured to make donations. DVI doesn't specifically, mention anything about that in their correspondence with you, but that has been something that other people on the block have said. So I guess what are your thoughts about that?
Well, if I'm running the Lyricist Live and curating a block, if I didn't put some kind of guidelines there, I could have 1 million vendors there on the block, or I can have the ones I selected who supports the Lyricist Live and my efforts downtown and what I've been doing. So out of those people that are supporting the Lyricist Live, they're the ones that we're picking for downtown, and nobody really has a complaint about it because they see the value in what I'm bringing. They know in my area, those vendors are doing well. All my vendors in my area on Laura Street were doing well enough to, continuously do it as long as they let me curate the block on Laura Street, and I've been doing it around the city. and it's always been beneficial for wherever I was in that footprint for the vendors to be close to where I was
Yeah.
because I had the microphone supporting those vendors, speaking their name, telling people to buy from them.
Right.
And that might have got pushed back because everybody can't be there. I can't. I'm running the cipher with the kids. I'm doing this thing. I can't literally. It can't literally be all about vendors. It
Right.
has to be about the artistic community and the kids and this the way we're promoting no violence and no cursing in Jacksonville with a hip hop cipher. That is the main thing.
I want to get to a couple of comments that we've gotten. One is John on Facebook, and he says, it's nice to hear someone acknowledge that the food trucks take away from the success of brick and mortar restaurants.
Mm.
This should be an issue considered throughout the city and not strictly downtown. That is something that has been an issue, Tony, for restaurants. I mean, you kind of
Yeah.
noted it, and they are charging, an additional fee now for food trucks as well. There has been some, relationship sometimes when a restaurant has a food truck outside and maybe even has been charging the food truck rent to be out there because they're losing a little income.
At Artwalk?
Mhm.
That would be interesting. Okay. Yeah. I don't know. It's really difficult to I have a lot of experience to sustain a restaurant downtown, and when you have big events,
You've
and
had restaurants, we
I
should
have
say.
had restaurants downtown, yeah, and I think it's a you know, I don't want people know where I live, so I don't want to talk bad about food trucks. This is a whole show you could do on food trucks, right? And they have a place, but they're at Art Walk, they're literally right in a lot of restaurants. Are morning and lunch serve that crowd, the sort of restaurants that remain standing. And we subsidize DIA, which is different than DVI, subsidize a lot of new restaurants, and a lot of probably $1 million worth of restaurants subsidies have shuttered already. I mean, this is not a great environment right now post pandemic. The workforce is different. I think I do feel like it's an advantage to be able to roll in, pay a little bit, make a bunch of money, and then roll out. It's a lot different than having to pay your taxes and pay DVI, frankly, because that's how they get paid, is from the millage. So it's a little bit of a conundrum. I'm not fully against food trucks, but I do feel like it's a pop up scenario, kind of a one sparky thing where we're it's not the real market. The real market, the real economy is the people who get up and open their doors every day and have bathrooms and have roofs and
Yeah. Sherry,
HVAC.
yeah, Sherry, I'm curious your thoughts about that because the experience at Art Walk for a lot of people walking around, they've done polls in the past that have said we want more food trucks, right? It is something that for the vendors can kind of liven up the scene, but to Tony's point, this balance between trying to infuse downtown, the permanent tenants of downtown versus kind of the festival atmosphere of downtown. What is your thought about sort of the interaction between those sometimes competing goals?
Well, as far as the food trucks go, I think they're an addition that may make people come. Sometimes people just come to pick up something quick uh, and just kind of browse around a little bit. But I don't really have much of an opinion about their effect. I enjoy it because I get to run and get something to eat while I'm out there working.
Yeah. Yeah. And Michael, we should say we've got for folks who are watching our live stream, some images of your artwork. Do you have any sense of your long-term commitment to Art Walk? Is it something that is servicing you enough as an artist that you want to continue participating over the long term, or do you think that this is more of a kind of temporary get your name out there effort for you?
It's definitely a temporary get my name out there sort of thing. I would like to be more ingrained into it, have a section where I come out and do live paintings for people, whatever it may be.
Mm.
Um, but it's most definitely temporary due to the changes, because I mean, there's been some changes over just the past like 3 years, so like major changes, so
Yeah. We got a message from MG saying Seattle's Art Walk involved many galleries in one part of downtown, not the entire downtown. There are very few galleries downtown, which is, I'm not sure the net number of galleries from the beginning to the end, but there have been a lot of pop-up galleries that have set up here and there. And you talked about available spaces or flexible spaces, I think you called them. I mean, some might just call those vacancies downtown, but there have been a lot of sort of temporary facilities that have set up around
Yeah, well,
Art
and a
Walk.
lot have been long-standing. So I think the one above the jewelers, there it used to be called Hemming Jewelers. Hopefully they changed the name, but that what's that space called? I'm blanking. And then that there's
Kind
a
of kitty
whole
corner from the
there's a
courthouse.
whole group that was in the Bank of America building. I think they were in the they may now be in the what it was formerly Wells Fargo. I think things changed so much. It's been 22 years
Oh,
since
yeah.
we started. Like literally this week's 22 years old Art Walk. So there's
Which it does speak to its staying power, just the time of
well,
it.
and I'll say this too. So I hate talking about problems all the time without like suggesting solutions, and this is just totally asked for opinion. But I think there's two things. One, let's find some sponsorship for it, right? DVI needs to I don't know, soften the cost, right? That's their problem. Let's find someone to support artists. There's got to be somebody out there that's really loves artists and that would want to help with that. If it's truly, if the regulatory sort of deciders need money, let's not take it from the artists. Let's figure out another way. And the second is that if DVI went away, like there was nothing, I think people will come out to Wednesday. Now it's ingrained in us, right? It's part of us. People would come out and enjoy Jacksonville and enjoy our cultural thing. Do we really need to festivalize it and make it regulated and be so overtly in control of this? Like
Managed.
maybe if they didn't do that, I think people would still go around downtown, and maybe we wouldn't have as many sidewalk things, because you do need permits and all that. But maybe people would be going back inside these places that the original sort of mission was to get people to participate in the businesses that are there. And we have, I think, maybe even fewer than when we started now.
Well, we should say it would be nice to hear from DVI on this to kind of help suss out some of the reasoning behind it, and just in the interest of transparency. So our invite to them to continue the conversation remains open, but we're going to have to leave it there. Tony Allegretti, Mal Jones, Michael Taylor, and Sherry Shine, thank you all so much for being here. Thanks for the work that you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, up next, a couple who sent love letters during wartime via secret code. Welcome back. Well, today we have a World War II love story in honor of Veterans Day. Author Larry Schnell's new book, A Sailor's Song: Lost Love Letters of World War II, tells the true story of a couple who sent love letters during wartime via a secret code. Joining us via video from his book tour is Larry Schnell. Larry, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. I'm pleased to be here.
So we should say, Larry, the couple that you write about in this book were your parents.
Yes.
Arthur and Flo Schnell. Your dad was in the Coast Guard. Tell us a little bit about how you found this cache of letters.
Yeah, my mother and father lived in upstate New York most of their lives near Cooperstown. And then in the retirement, they became snowbirds and they lived in Vero Beach for the winter. Upstate New York attic was full of war memorabilia. I mean, lots and lots of boxes of things, photographs and war stuff. Not so Vero Beach. But when my mother died in 2007, I went down to the house in Vero Beach with my sister and, trying to clean things out. And I looked up in the attic and there was nothing in the attic except this box. And it was a pretty ragged looking box. It was not the kind of box you'd consider a repository for anything of interest. It was actually a bacon box from Utica, New York that had 12 pounds of bacon. And it was stamped, inspected, and passed. So I took it down, looked at it, and it was full of war letters. And I just glanced through them and just closed it back up because I said, this is much too vast for me to get into without having at least a year to work on it. There were letters both ways, from my mother to my father and from my father to my mother. So I glanced at a few things. And one of the things I noticed was, of course, all the envelopes were stamped. My father's envelopes were stamped, inspected, and passed, like the bacon box in Utica. And I thought that was kind of interesting. But one letter
We should clarify what you're talking about there. I mean, you found these letters in a box that originally had bacon for sale in it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was covered with wax, which might have helped preserve some of the letters. One of the letters said, "Remember the code." I had no idea what they were talking about, and I didn't for 6 years. And then my brother had the code letter that my father sent to explain the code that he would use to tell her his location on the ship. So that blew things kind of wide open there, and I started to go back and read the letters with an eye for that.
And so you had this pile of letters, and your father was in the Coast Guard. He was serving obviously during World War II. He was a musician, and his
Yes.
role in the war was different than some because of that role that he played. And I want to talk about that, and I want to talk about the role of music in a minute. But just tell us a little bit about your parents, about their relationship, about at what point your father went to war after their marriage.
Mhm. My father was from Rochester. My mother was originally from the Bronx, but both were musicians and both ended up at Ithaca College. And that's where they met. And after graduation, they got married. They both played trombone, and they were both looking at a lifetime of music as a career. So my father enlisted in the Coast Guard in 1943, and he enlisted as a musician. He was based at the Manhattan Beach training station in New York. And they used music very, very appropriately for bond rallies. They played for ship commissionings. They played on bass. They played for the Mutual radio broadcast. But my father and most of the musicians he played with, and in fact, I guess we'll get into this, much of the American public, the music they loved was dance music, romance, the slush of the big bands. That was their passion. They weren't real keen on the patriotic music that they were required to play. But anyway, there.
And
So
that
that's
is,
my point.
I mean, that is something that you talk about in the book, is the fact that, in the minds of some of the folks in the military, this was going to be a great kind of animating force for troops, playing patriotic music, listening to it, reinforcing their commitment to the war effort. But what really spoke to them was this really sometimes just, overblown but wonderfully romantic music of that era, and the sound of big bands, which is, what your father and his colleagues enjoyed performing, because that was what the soldiers and the sailors liked listening to.
Yes. And if you look at the popular music of during the war, one of my sources said that only 27 war-themed musical pieces, ever reached the top of the charts, and they didn't last very long. 27 war-themed music is not very much. There never was apparently a defining song in World War II.
Yeah.
Music, the slush and the romance really dominated the scene.
And letters were a part of the experience of these sailors on these ships. Your father received more than most, and in fact, some of the other uh, sailors on the ship would comment about the fact that he was in such communication with his wife that it either gave them pause about their own relationship or just spoke to how true and faithful theirs was. So this was a very constant back and forth that they had. Tell us a little bit more about the code that your father created when he was communicating with your mom and why he would have wanted to have some code in these letters that were so heavily censored.
The code that I finally learned about 6 years after seeing the letters was that if he started a letter with the introduction, "Dear Darling," then the first letter of the second word of each sentence would spell out the location where he was. And I think there are probably 8 or 9, maybe 10 letters that did that. So I thought it was kind of cool to trace the path of the ships in 4 voyages. But actually, it was pretty sketchy because it only happened in a few places. So with the National Archives and the ship's logs and things that I obtained down in Washington, I could trace where the ships went, and then I could put the Dear Darling letters into perspective as to where he was. But it's a good question. Why would they do that? Like, what is the point? What do you get out of it? Why do you need to know where that person is? I'm not sure it was as much from my father it was from my mother. It gave her a sense of where he was. It just gave her a sense that he was still there. And beyond that, I'm not really sure. I wish that I had known about these letters when she was alive, because I would have asked her.
Yeah. And you
But I
would have
didn't.
asked her, but we should say, in addition to your work as an author, you're a former journalism professor at the University of Florida. You're a former reporter at the Florida Times-Union here in Jacksonville. So inquiry is your line of work, or was for a number of years. Will you talk a little bit about the music that was on these ships? Because you talk in the book about how you feel that perhaps the commander of your father's boat, which went into many, perilous places, they were a troop ship, so they would deliver fresh troops. They would pick up troops that had been some really grueling, difficult places and experiences. What role did the commander and ultimately kind of your father and the band feel that they played for those soldiers?
Yeah, the USS Greeley was commanded by George W. Stedman Jr., and he was a prodigy cruise ship captain. He did 19 circumnavigations before the war. When the war started, he enlisted in the Coast Guard, and he had this band organized to play on the ship before the ship was even commissioned because he wanted the band. So of course, when the band members were transferred from New York to San Francisco, about a dozen of them from the Manhattan Beach Band, they didn't know what was going to happen. They had no idea what they were going to do. They didn't know if they were going to play music. They hoped they would. And as it turned out, the ship had a piano and an organ, and it had a music room, and it had a sound system throughout the ship. And the bands played on deck every day, weather permitting. A big military band played in the afternoon, and a dance band played at night, and the troops surrounded them and listened, and of course, troops going both ways. The troops going to the Pacific were obviously preparing for the invasion of Japan, and that was not going to be a pretty picture. These were kids. They were nervous. They had no experience with battle. They really were not they really didn't know what they were going to have. So, and that led to anxieties of all sorts. Commander Stedman believed that the music would assuage their concerns and ease their anxieties and give them some joy for a moment, because the trips were beautiful. If you didn't have to worry about torpedoes, it would be just a beautiful travel trip. Coming back from 3 voyages to India, they brought back some of the troops that were just brutally damaged by war. They brought back Merrill's Marauders, for example, and who had just seen devastation and disease and death in the jungles. And my father told me when I was a kid that they were very unmanageable. I mean, some of them were incoherent. And Commander Stedman may very well have been one of the very early promoters of music therapy as a therapy for post-traumatic stress disorders.
Well, Larry, we're hearing the music there because we're going to have to leave it. Larry Schnell, thank you so much for being with us today. We'll be back in just a minute with the Ain't Sisters of the band ahead of their performance here Friday.
Thank you.
Life South Community Blood Centers, providing blood and patient services to the local hospitals, serving patients in this community. Donating blood with Life South helps save lives. More at lifesouth.org to find a blood drive near you. Terrell Hogan Law.
I'm Wayne Hogan. Accidents can happen when you least expect it. For decades, our attorneys have dug out the facts to help juries decide who's at fault.
More at terrellhoganlaw.com.
WJCT Public Media, ViStar Credit Union, Sudeth Moving and Storage, and the Tom Bush family of dealerships are honoring the memory of Fred Rogers with the annual Mr. Rogers Neighborhood Sweater Drive. The drive runs through November 30th and accepts gently used sweaters, jackets, blankets, and new socks and underwear. Contributions will be donated to nonprofit facilities within the First Coast area. Items may be dropped off at WJCT Studios as well as ViStar Credit Union branches, Sudeth Moving and Storage, and the Tom Bush family of dealerships. For more info, log on to wjct.org/events.
On the next Fresh Air, Marion Nestle had to completely revise her groundbreaking book, What to Eat, 20 years later, thanks to changes in what and how we eat, like the prevalence of ultra-processed foods and the popularity of food delivery. Nestle guides us through today's supermarket maze and the influences that determine what's on our plate. Join us.
Today at noon on WJCT News 89.9.
You might have heard the term Orwellian in recent months to describe the modern political era. But who exactly was George Orwell? It's a question filmmaker Raoul Peck tackles in his new documentary, Orwell, 2 + 2 = 5. Through Orwell's own words and diary entries, the film explores authoritarian power in the past and the present. That's next time on 1A.
Today starting at 10 on WJCT News 89.9.
Welcome back. An Atlanta-based duo describes itself as a band that can play you down the aisle at your wedding and fight your ex in the Waffle House parking lot the same night. It's a musical range that will obviously speak to a lot of us here in Northeast Florida. Joining us via video ahead of their local performance at Intuition Aleworks are Ain't Sisters, Barb Carbon, and Ari Bozeman. Thanks, both of you, for joining us today. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Yes,
So-
good to be here.
Yeah, so tell us, first of all, what is the story behind your band name, Ain't Sisters?
Okay, so we were in Folly Beach and we had got matching dresses, and this is many years ago, over 13 years ago, and we were just got matching dresses and we're playing guitars and stuff, and people kept asking us if we were related. Are you sisters? Are you sisters? You and your sister sound good. And so we just keep saying yeah, we ain't sisters, and that's it.
That's right. So it's stuck. So your sound has been described as a mix of Indigo Girls, Dream Theater, and a little bird cloud in the mix. Does that sound accurate to you?
No. But it's an ongoing joke because people in the music industry, everyone wants to know your genre, and it's kind of important because there's a lot of festivals and stuff are looking for certain genres, and they're like, well, what genre are you? And people tried to categorize us as bluegrass and jam band or folk rock or whatever, but like it's not
It's all of that.
categorizable.
Yeah.
And so we started throwing around, and we get, in a serious sense, we get everything from Pink Floyd to, you can hear her Prince influences. We've both been very influenced by Patty Griffin, and yes, the Indigo Girls for sure, but like we don't sound like the Indigo Girls very much.
No.
It's kind of, and I think we've just kind of landed on, we're a rock band. It's kind of like the Grateful Dead. It's just a rock band, or the Stones were a rock band. It's like you might get one that sounds kind of country or one that sounds kind of funky, but when it comes back to the center, it's rock and roll.
Yeah, and you do have so many different every song kind of has a different vibe. I mean, some of them really are like kind of that Prince, almost disco-y sound. Ari on the mandolin, you kind of really bring in that country vibe. But there's a lot of soul music, really, it feels throughout.
Yeah, it's definitely eclectic for sure. And the whole Dream Theater thing, that's like from our bass player. We do like one lick in one song. He's like, "Oh man, we're like Dream Theater." It's like not at all. Not at all. But we'll take it. It's funny.
You guys are from Atlanta. Does that being from Atlanta or being from Georgia, does that shape your sound at all? Who do you claim as your own musical influences?
A lot of the Atlanta music scene has deeply influenced us as artists. We always say it's just so inclusive, and Ralph Roddenberry, Donna Hopkins, Holland Gamage. There's a lot of people around the Atlanta scene that have brought us up and said, "Hey, come on out, come down to this festival with us. We'll get you up for a couple songs on our set." And like that broke us into, Spirit of the Swanee Music Park and stuff. So
Live Oak, Florida.
Yeah.
Which has become like it's weird because yes, we are from Atlanta. We definitely also were a stone's throw from Athens, and so we've got like the influence of the Athens music scene, which is historical and amazing. Macon's not too far away, so we've kind of got that whole Southern rock thing around us. We're definitely not a Southern rock band, but we've got a lot of those influences. And then all of a sudden we burst onto the scene into Florida, and the people from the St. Pete area have become like family to us, and that's a second home, and Live Oak is the second home for us, and so Florida really does feel like a place that we belong. We really love it here. We want to keep coming back. Plus it's warm.
Yeah. And you've got 7 shows in Florida, including, in the one that you're doing here in Jacksonville. But I just wanted to briefly talk about your new album. It's a double album. I think that it's something that you started working on during the pandemic called Atomic. Tell us a little bit about it, because I've seen you describe it as like kind of a soundtrack to the apocalypse.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of these songs, some of them were written in that time period, but some of them are like really like they've been around for many years, and just got around to putting them on an album. So yeah, the soundtrack to the apocalypse is we started it during COVID, which was pretty different. It was a different time for all of us, and so and then it's just the ongoing feeling of extreme change, for better or for worse. Right now I think we're living in it for sure.
We try to loop it back around to hope. It's like the soundtrack to the apocalypse with a silver lining. Like,
yeah, it is an up vibe to the music, and I'm glad that we have a soundtrack now. So appreciate it. Ain't Sisters are performing at Intuition Ale Works November 14th on Friday, and they're joined by Firewater Tent Revival, Barb Carbon, Ari Bozeman. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
And that's our program. Thank you for listening. If you have feedback or suggestions for future segments, you can send either to First Coast Connect at WJCT.org. And if you missed anything, you can find our entire archive on the First Coast Connect YouTube channel or at WJCT.org and your favorite podcast platform. First Coast Connect is produced by Stacey Bennett. Our associate producer is Isabella Casapow. Our show is directed by Brady Corum, and our theme music is performed by Club de Belugas. Join us tomorrow when we sit down with Jacksonville Mayor Donna Deegan for her monthly visit and take your calls and questions. I'm Ann Schindler. You've been listening to First Coast Connect on WJCT News 89.9.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided by Baptist Health and the North Florida TPO.
The North Florida TPO is committed to shaping our transportation future. We're focused on planning, funding, clean fuels, and new technologies for a vibrant, connected community. Learn more at northfloridatpo.com. Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or baptistjacks.com. Blue Star Families, supporting military families through connection, community, and local engagement. Constant moves and deployments are part of military life. A little community can go a long way. Learn more at bluestarfam.org/radio.